Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks to the lovely warm day we had yesterday, like I said about adjusting things, it's brought my watering day forward. My watering of the pots does tend to go over 2, sometimes 3 days, depends on how I feel. And what it also depends on is whether the mounts come into play at the same time, because if I add those in to doing the pots, the time goes up quite dramatically. So yeah, this is the second consecutive day with the bright light in the sky. This are good. But as a consequence, I'm forward, in fact, 2 days. I thought I'd show that. You know, I'm always going green with envy at the Latoria type dendrobiums. Well, strictly speaking, that's the only one I've got, and it is a very young plant, but it's moving. This is what we like to see. Now, I deliberately potted that high so that the new roots could come out, and then I can always build up the media around those new roots if I choose to. But it's a young plant, so it needs to be kept quite moist. Until plants mature, this drying out in between is not the best of ideas. A young plant needs to be pushed on. So that's what I'm doing with this one. This is Nora Tokunaga, which has beautiful flowers one day in the dim and distant future. But it's coming on. You know, it's taken. It was potted up, didn't move, excuse me, and now the roots are pushing. This is what we like to see. And hopefully some new growth will follow. That's a new growth on the end there, pushing up to maturity. So anyway, it's coming on. So my only tiny little Latoria. I will get more, I'm determined. And I think probably apart from eBay and places like that, although they tend to go for a fortune on eBay because they're difficult to get. So, you know, supply and demand, the price rockets on some of them. I mean, one of them that I was seriously looking at, which was a beautiful plant. I mean, I was prepared to, given that it was 10 quid postage, I was prepared to go up to sort of like 25 quid maybe. So that would have been a 35 quid plant. I mean, I'd have thrown in a few of the other sellers' plants to make the postage worthwhile. 10 quid for one plant and £1 extra for each extra plant. So, you know, if you buy 3, the postage becomes reasonable. But for one, it was quite expensive. That plant went for 48 quid, plus the 10 quid, postage and packing. And that's more than I'm prepared to pay for an orchid that I can't pick up, inspect, look at the roots and everything else, even though it had half a dozen pictures. Anyway, I'll see what else there is to film as I go round. Probably not too much today. We'll see how we go. Just a quick word about Nobile hybrids. There are many different sorts. Most are unnamed, but if you're lucky enough to get one with a tag with a name, so be it. But I class them as 2 types. They're all Nobile hybrids, yes, but there are this type. And if you've got this type, they should be in bloom right now. And they may have been in bloom for quite a few weeks at this point of the year. Yeah? They are late winter, early spring bloomers. That's one type. The other type is everything else. And one is up here. This is Prima Donna. It's a late starter. It doesn't come into bloom late winter, early spring. It comes into bloom more like early spring into spring. As you can see, the buds are swelling nicely, but it's not out yet. So it's at least 3 weeks behind the others. And there's plenty more buds to come. Last year, this one was in bloom for 6 months. It has little flushes of flowers continuously. Now, it's possible with different treatment I could get a mass blooming, but I don't want a mass blooming on this. The flowers are so nice, I want to see them for as long as possible. So the treatment it gets for me, that's what it produces. It'll have some bloom soon. That bud there is just cracking. So a couple of days it'll start to open, and I'll certainly be filming that when it opens. It's my best Nobile in my opinion. And you don't see it very often. Prima Donna, I think Anna Maria's got one, and that's the only other person I've ever heard of that's got one. Okay, so that's a slightly late bloomer. It's already into growth. My Nobiles of this type are now getting fed They're putting up growth. They are now in active growth. They need some food. I don't care what's happening with the blooms. I'm looking at the plant. And then there's this one. An unknown quantity, classed as a nobile type. This is Wedding Bells. And when I got this in August last year, so I haven't had it long, it was in bloom. So this is another one that's going to be late spring or possibly summer bloomer. You might ask, why can there be so many differences? Well, it's a nobile hybrid. So just ask the question, hybrid with what? And that's where the differences come. The nobile itself, the species, like Highlander, there can be only one, and it's a pretty bloom. It's a bit like Comet King, quite a common hybrid. And I would suggest that Comet King has a lot of the original nobile species in it. But some of these nobile hybrids are quite complex, and they have other types of dendrobiums mixed in with them that may not even be spring blooming. They could even be fall blooming, autumn blooming. Yeah? And often you can't find their origins, so you don't know. So you just have to look at the plant and see how it does. Now, the fact that I haven't had this one long, there are no signs of any buds on this one yet. And I think this is either going to be a late spring, summer, or even autumn bloomer. But it's still a nobile hybrid. Yeah? There are differences. They're not all the same. So this one didn't get a winter rest because it was an unknown quantity, and the fact that it was in bloom in August told me it's probably not an early spring bloomer. So this one's had a little bit more water than the others, shall we say, through the winter, to try and keep it going a bit. There's no signs of new growths yet, but it's pushed out a hell of a lot of roots since I got it. So it's coming on, but there are different nobile hybrids. They're not all the same. I mean, the plants, obviously the blooms are just the blooms. Okay, so a little quick thing on nobiles. Now this may be sad, but I'm not sure. This is Dendrobium trigonopus. It's the black hair type, or one of them. And the cane that's actually strapped to the stake and the one next to it with its last remaining leaf were last year's new growths, and they pushed on incredibly well. And then the plant just seemed to start to deteriorate, and I assumed at the time it probably wasn't doing as well on its mount as it should have done. Probably getting too hot. So I took it down and put it in a pot, and it promptly stalled. But I need to go and look this up. Is this a fully deciduous dendrobium? In which case it might be doing exactly what it's supposed to do. In which case there should be some new growth soon. Or it's dead. Those are the choices. But I'm not just going to throw it out because it's dropped its leaves. Some dendrobiums just do that. And I mean, the canes aren't shriveled or desiccated. That's what they look like. But anyway, I'll have to go and look that one up. I may well have lost that one, I'm not sure. It's never bloomed for me, so it wouldn't be the end of the world. But it was an interesting little plant. I liked the look of it. But it may be gone, maybe not. We'll see. So I've just picked this one up. Up round the back of the giant nobile hybrids is Keiki City. That's where all my, little things like this live, and all these little ones. They all live up in between the noblies, where there's space between the big pots and still good light. This is a classic example of what I mean by a nobile hybrid. This is Dendrobium nobile crossed with Dendrobium moniliform. Yeah? Now, nobile, the species, if you don't rest that, you won't get blooms. It has to be treated right. Moniliform is a continuous grower. So what do you get when you cross those two? Now, that's got a red tag in it, not because it's my daughter's. She was looking after it for a bit, but because it's got to go. That I've got in my hand is a young plant. It's keikis stuck in a pot, and they are growing some nice roots now. The original plant that they came off of was over 1 metre tall and a good 2 feet wide, a good 2/3 of a metre wide. It was the most giant bush you could imagine, a stunning plant, and absolutely stunning blooms that you were lucky to get much more than a week out of. And once, occasionally twice a year. So I couldn't justify the space for the plant, so I sold the mother plant and got a lot of money for it because it was a very mature specimen. So I don't want this, I'm not keeping it, I'm just growing it on to such a point where, you know, it's a sellable plant, which quite honestly it's not far off now. But yeah, a conflict of interest. A Nobile, must have winter rest, crossed with a continuous grower. So what do you do with that then? That was an open question, I'm not answering it. But you see what I mean about Nobile hybrids. If you know what they're crossed with, you can take a guess at how to look after them, but otherwise just treat them like a Nobile hybrid, I suppose, is the easy answer. So that's a nice little pot full of Kingianum type keikis. Just broken off the plant when they had a few roots. They pushed out some more roots. It's a nice little pot full. It's now a sellable plant. How would I sell that plant to maximise what I get for it? Easy. Show them the picture of what it can do. Those are keikis off of this beastie. Yeah? Lovely little flowers and a monster of a plant for somebody who's got the room and can give it enough light. Yeah? So that's how it started. When I first got that plant, these little canes down, there's another one, off you come. So this time of year I'm taking them off. I want the energy to go into the spikes, not keikis. It can do keikis later in the year if it wants. Yeah, when I first got it, these were the canes in here. Those are the old canes. So it was about that size. Little Dendrobium on a mount. Now look at the flipping thing. It's taking over. I think it has visions of being the dominant plant in here, you know, the top dog, I'm in charge. Yeah, we're not, I am. And I've got overall say on what stays and what goes. I was talking to my daughter about that and I said, quite honestly, this thing's getting too big for its boots. I'm not overly keen on the blooms because they're so small for the size of the plant. I think I might actually sell this one on. And she said, you ought to keep it to show that you can grow a specimen plant. And I sort of said, well, show who? Who am I going to show it to? I don't believe it's good enough to go in a show. It would need a lot more spikes at the same time to warrant that sort of treatment. But yeah, I mean, yes, I can grow a specimen-sized Dendrobium, but it's taken up an awful lot of space. I could get 4 mounts where that one is. Maybe 5 or even 6 if they were miniatures. Open to debate. It's a whopper. But anyway, there's another one coming on behind it. Now, I have shown these before. This is Stardust Firebird, and I threw the mother plant away in disgust. It was such a tatty looking object, even though it has nice blooms and they're very pretty. But these were the couple of keikis that I decided to start again. Well, first of all, we have a proper new growth growing from the base. This is what I want. I don't want keikis, not on this plant. And all these shoots on this cane that I thought, well, knowing this flipping plant, it's probably keikis. But looking at the shape of them now, they are going to be blooms. I don't believe they're keikis. So maybe actually starting the keikis again with their own set of roots that are, there are some in there. I was just going to say I hope it's got some roots, but the keikis didn't have many. But yeah, starting the plant again may have done the trick, and it may have just broken it of its really bad keiki habit. Time will tell, obviously, but at the moment I'm pretty sure that those little growths are going to be blooms. Just looking at the shape of them, they don't look like they're going to have leaves, but time will tell. But at least I've got a new growth at the base, so that's a bonus. Now, I know I've already filmed this one, but that was up on the shelf in behind all the other plants because that's where it lives. It's just so tall and it's prone to tipping over. So the other plants hold it upright, you know, until watering day when I normally drop the thing or it keels over. But just look at the number of buds on this. This is going to be quite a show. And even though I've already filmed it, because it was tucked in behind another plant, I hadn't noticed that a couple of the buds are just starting to open. So a taster of what's to come. Beautiful yellow with a darker centre and pink tinges to the edges. I'm really looking forward to this bursting forth. And this one's going to be open in a day or two. Loads of buds on this one. This is a star performer for me. It just won't stop blooming once it starts. See, there's young buds down here just starting. There's last year's canes over here and up the back. They'll probably bloom this year, later in the year, even though they should really wait till next spring. But this one just doesn't do that. It just keeps putting buds out. Now I've got a couple of useless canes. I call them useless because they've bloomed over their whole length and they've now lost all their leaves. And with a plant that's this vigorous and this strong, all they really do, specifically these two and that one, they're in the way, they're causing the plant to tip because of their sheer weight, even though they haven't got any leaves on, and they've served their purpose. They're no longer of any use. So certainly those three are coming off at the base. Yeah? There's plenty of strength in that plant. I'm not going to deplete the energy of the plant by taking those off. If you've got a Nobile type hybrid with 3 canes and you take your 2 old canes off, you've just taken away all its strength. But not in this case. There's plenty of strength in this plant. And then this old cane here, it's going to have its last little fling, a couple of buds on the joints that hadn't flowered before, where it missed out. So as soon as those are done, that one can probably go, and this one's having a last fling right on the tip. So a fair few canes to come off, and then I can restake it, cluster it together and make it taller and less wide. And it's the width that keeps tipping this over, not the height. And then we've got nice new growths coming down the bottom too. So yeah, love this one. Yeah, and I'd missed those two that were opening simply because they were buried in behind other plants. Yeah, it's quite, I suppose if you've got a large growing area and it really is full, you know, from rooftop hanging plants right down the sides and all on the bench, things could actually bloom and go over and you didn't even see them. I don't think mine's quite that cluttered, but I can imagine that being possible, you know. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to this one. It's a real showstopper. Coming soon. Well, the second one's opened on this, Miltonia Sunset. What a beauty. I wanted to get these because at this point the colours are fresh. And the bit that fades is right at the centre on the top petals. Not the 3 sepals, the 2 top petals. You see that delicate pink flush that fades into the yellow. That disappears after a while. It's only just showing on this one. So I thought I'd grab that while I was going round. I finished watering for today. The sun's decided to not play. It's gone in again. That's the only other thing I've noticed as I went round. This is Melissa Bryony. But what is it? Miltonidium. It says there. Chances are since I last looked it's changed. But that's pushing the spike up. These are massive, beautiful flowers. So that does not give any impression of what's to come. But yeah, it's one of my favourites that I've got. And great story went behind this because I saw this in a show. And the year prior to that, I'd had a chat with the vendor, lovely French guy, Lecouf I think it is, and he had some mislabeled plants which I pointed out to him. And first of all, he was incredibly embarrassed, which I liked because it meant he cared. Second, he was furious because he hadn't done those labels and he'd given strict instructions to somebody to do them and they'd messed it up. But the following year, when I got this plant, he had a couple in his display section. And I went and had a chat to him, as one does when you get to know your vendors. And he remembered me. So he really was embarrassed about that the year before. Anyway, he remembered me and I asked about these plants. And he said, actually, I've only got them in display at the moment. And then he sort of put his finger sort of on his nose and went, just a minute, I'll see what I can do. and he went and shuffled round the display, and somebody came up and started talking to me, and when I turned round, this magnificent plant was presented to me at a very, very sensible price. I think it had a couple of spikes on at the time, so I'm confident that came out of his display, and greatly appreciated. So as I finish watering now, I won't be going around the rest of the plants. I'm there. That's the next lot to do. Down through there and down through there. That'll be tomorrow now. And I'll have to do my mounts again tomorrow as well. So tomorrow will be quite a busy day. Quite a few things are not in here that were when I started. Some of them are never going to be in here again. You know what I mean. I really am thinning down. I'm really being ruthless. And I've got shows coming up. I need new plants. I want new plants. I have a list and I need the space for them. So anything that's not performing that I've had quite a while and just won't do well is out. It's gone. And I've pulled out quite a few that, although it's still a bit early in the year to be doing repotting, looking at them closer today, they've come up to the emergency repot status, and I'll film that separately. So thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you soon. I'm not quite sure when this video will get posted. I'm not quite sure if that repotting is going to get done this afternoon. Probably. I haven't got anything else to do, and I'm not quite sure what I'll film tomorrow, and I haven't got a clue when any of the videos are going to get posted. So yeah. There is one video I am absolutely dying to do, but I can't do it on my own. Somebody else has got to do something first. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I'm really looking forward to it.